You are live.
All right. Good evening and welcome to the September meeting of the Annapolis Education Commission. My name is Laura. I am the vice chair because Janet is dialing in from her vacation because she is that dedicated. So thank you all for joining this evening. I'm going to quickly throw up the or place the agenda on the screen. If I can find it, there we go. We have a little adjustment from the order that it was posted online. We have some time constraints that we're working around this evening. Joanna Tobin, the president of the Board of Education, will be able to join us a little later. She can give us from 6:30 to about 7, and Jolynn Davis and Bob Mosier will be able from AACPS will be able to give us a little bit of time between 7 and 7:15. So we're going to kind of keep an eye on the clock and try to get those in during those slots so that we can make the most of their time. So very quickly, I want to do a quick roll call, and then we will do the minutes from the August meeting, which I hope everyone had a chance to read. They did get sent out last week. So I'm going to quickly go down the list. Just let us know who you are and what your connection to the schools in Annapolis is. Starting with Ward 1, Rachel Carr.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Rachel Carr from Ward 1, and I teach at the Naval Academy.
Thank you. Jamie Weaver is Ward 2. She is not present this evening. Is Enid, did I see Enid's face or Enid's name go by? Yes, Enid, there you are. It's like tic-tac-toe, only too many people. Ward 3.
Yes, I'm Enid Collison Lee, representing Ward 3. Retired school teacher, two children who have gone through the Annapolis cluster feeder system.
Ward 4 is vacant. Ward 5 is India Oaks.
India Oaks, Ward 5, mother of an 8th grader at Bates Middle School.
Ward 6 is Corey Mackle, and she is not here this evening. Ward 7 is me. I have a class of 2021 graduate from Annapolis High, and I have an 8th grader at Bates, where I am also PTA president. Ward 8 is Jess Packler.
I am Jess Packler. I am a resident of Eastport, and I am a mom of 4 kids, 1 at Eastport, 1 at Annapolis Middle, and 2 at Annapolis High. And I am currently the AMS PTSA president as well.
All right, and then we have our at-large representatives, starting with Janet Norman, our chair.
Hi, Janet Norman, former Hillsmere Elementary, Annapolis Middle, Annapolis High parent of 2021 and 2018 graduates, and PTA president in 2021 for Annapolis High. Thank you all for participating.
All right, and then at large, Pam Bukowski.
Hi, I have 6 children who attended schools in the Annapolis cluster, Hillsmere, Annapolis Middle, and Annapolis High. My youngest graduated in 2010, and I now have a grandson attending the new school at Hillsmere. I'm a retired speech language pathologist from the county.
And then did Odessa dial in? I thought I saw, oh, there you are, Odessa. Sorry, I'm not tracking. I have a sore throat and I'm not tracking super well this evening, so I'm just going to apologize in advance if I seem particularly incapable. Odessa.
Okay. Yes. Good evening. Mother of 3 who graduated from Annapolis High School and retired permanent substitute teacher.
And then did I see Grace Matthews at large? No. Okay. I do not see her. And then our alderperson is Sheila Finlayson, and I do not see her either. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us this evening. Very quickly, does anyone have any adjustments to the minutes from the August meeting? Any changes? Nope. All right. Can I have someone make a motion to approve them as written?
A motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second?
I'll second them.
Thank you, Jess. All right. Any objections? No. All right, then the minutes are approved. Do we have anyone online for public testimony tonight? Is there anyone else other than the panelists connected? I did not get any emails from anyone.
I don't have anyone here.
Okay, all right. I didn't get any emails from anyone else wanting to participate, but again, wanted to make sure. All right. Okay, if we could go then to Will Rowell giving us an update from the city of Annapolis. Thank you for joining us this evening.
I did want to acknowledge the fact that
I'm having some issues with your audio.
fine. Can you? That's interesting. It says it's fine.
We can
Now
hear
it's
you now, Will. Oh, try
Now it's
again.
good.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's better.
Right now?
Yes, thank you.
Again, I wanted to give an update, a much needed update to the Education Commission about an education roundtable meeting that was held September 18th at City Hall. And as I do this, I am open for questions as they arise, so that we have a full understanding and I'm able to, kind of talk about some of the nuances of that meeting. What I'll do is I'll summarize how we arrived at having that meeting, and then I'll also go into some of the takeaways and what was discussed in the meeting. So following the death of Trayon Hunt in the Bywater Mutual Homes community, there was everywhere talks of the need for something to be done to address the community level violence, but in particular gun violence. And even more shockingly, the fact that it is essentially happening within the teen community and the teen population of the city of Annapolis. And then also another subset of that is also its African-American teenagers. And so there were, a few community meetings that were held that involved impacted families and impacted community members in a couple different locations. Internal talks in the mayor's office were that we needed to really get to the heart of what some of these issues were. And the mayor determined that he wanted to kick off that conversation by engaging with the superintendent, Dr. Bedell. So how the meeting came about is the mayor and the superintendent decided they wanted to have a conversation to kind of express what some of the, first of all, what some of the challenges are within schools, and then to discuss opportunities for collaboration between the city of Annapolis and AACPS. And then a deeper dive is to explore some existing and potentially online programmatic pieces that would help bridge some of those gaps, such as the mentorship program, our internship program, No Harm, which is our violence intervention program, and some other programmatic pieces. But so that there would be an intentional collaboration, they wanted to host this meeting. So we went about being sure that there were stakeholders in the education field who would be in that meeting. What happened was the superintendent and Bob Mosier essentially convened their entire cabinet. So it was pretty interesting because we had everyone from his chief of staff to the deputy superintendent to chief equity and innovation, director of student services, regional assistant superintendent, and the list went on and on. So what we did is we hosted this meeting And the agenda was focused on Dr. Bedell kind of outlining his vision and his scope as it relates to young people in the school system, which is, kind of a higher level conversation. And then moving it on to specifically the principals of schools such as Annapolis Middle School, Annapolis High School, Phoenix Academy, and I believe in middle school. And so in this conversation, they were able to talk about what challenges within individual schools that were being faced. And some of those things that arise were the fact that, there's a sense of isolation, that essentially a lot of our community centers are not activated, and we're not able to actually bridge that gap between what happens at school and what happens when they return to their neighborhoods, their communities, and really what happens when they return home. One huge takeaway from the meeting was the idea that there is a very serious need for casework involving mental health, and that we needed for it to extend and possibly connect at the community level to deal with not only trauma, but to deal with some of the day-to-day socioeconomic and environmental issues that exist in communities. And a lot of those conversations have been bifurcated. There's much deeper conversation and strategy and action that needs to take place. But this particular meeting was to, lay those things out, and for there to be a meeting of minds between the mayor and the superintendent and all of those, such as myself, who are in that fold and have, very specific call to action around some of those things. Andre Dillard, whom I'm sure you all know, is spearheading the mentorship program, expressed and had met with us before and expressed the need for us to have city employees quite possibly serve as mentors in his program. And again, that's one part of it. The mayor has committed, to partnering with this program. And once the program is established, there'll be an update on numbers, not necessarily whom in terms of staff persons, but the numbers that are engaged in that and the number of hours. And they're going to track a little bit of some outcomes around that in the short term and midterm areas. Also, Dr. Tobin was there and expressed the fact that we really should be focusing also on the spectrum of needs for children. And this was echoed throughout the meeting that, we do focus on, the high school later years, but there's also a need to focus on preschool and early education so that we're getting young people ready to learn, ready to develop at a pace that allows them to have future success educationally. What was initially discussed in the meeting also was trying to flesh out what some of those factors are that are contributing to, this uptick in gun violence at the age that is, pretty, it's pretty scary to imagine that some of these young people who are poised to matriculate and poised to move to the next phase of their life and hopefully enter the workforce, into college, armed forces, all of those things are engaged in this community level violence. So some of the principals, some of the former principals really talked about the need for assistance and help at the city when it comes to programmatic pieces, as I said. A lot of their projects are funded, but there needs to be a bridge between where these young people actually live and spend their time, particularly after school. So one person who was supposed to be at the meeting but could not make the meeting is our director of Recreation and Parks, because one of the key pieces to that was also identified is how can we activate Stanton Center, Pitt Moyer, and again, some of our other community-based centers so that we can have wraparound services. And not just, one-off kind of special things, but something ongoing where there's an ongoing commitment and investment to giving young people an opportunity to do some other things. And that is beyond sports and beyond, just having a place to go, but having really targeted programmatic things that allow them to have time that is spent developing, also time spent building relationships. Now, one of the things, there's a lot more that I can discuss on that, but in lieu of time, I just wanted to run through some of the takeaways from the meeting. And then if you want, I can be open for questions. So there's the Be Present initiative, which I'm sure you all are familiar with. And, we wanted to find, within this meeting, to find a way to more meaningfully connect with, in particular, the mayor's office and some of the work that we're doing to be sure that we're supporting and kind of engaging in that program. The other is our internship program, which has had several iterations in the past couple of years. But one of the things we know we did want to do was just, intentionally be sure that we are providing a pathway for young people. And if at all possible, it's very hard to do that. And also, have it be open and fair to everyone. But we want to, find a way to ensure that some of these young people who are in that target population have an opportunity to engage in a paid internship program that will allow them to, learn new skills and be around professionals and be in a different environment. The other was parent-student mental health services. So not just the students, but making an attempted effort to reach parents and families to provide some of those mental health services. Erin Lee, who is our Office of Community Services social worker in the city, has identified that she's working with people personnel workers. And what they do is they coordinate services for families outside of the school setting. So this was really good in that sense because it allowed her to both exchange information, but also, be more exacting on those students who are in that population who need those services as well as their families. The other thing that came out of it, as I said before, is after school activities for young people, in particular teens, and the activation and utilization of those community centers. Just so that I'm clear, the Eastport Community Center, the Robinwood Community Center, and a few others are not fully activated for fiscal reasons as well as some other reasons. But, what came out of this is we need to prioritize being able to activate those spaces so that there is a space for, for young people to congregate and to have fun together and learn together. As I said, Recreation and Parks teen programming, they're having teen nights where the hope is, these young people will be able to come together and engage in activities and music and just fun stuff to take their mind off some of the stress and trauma that's happening right now with in some of the neighborhoods they live in. The other is nonprofit organizational support and capacity building. And this is where the city, and in particular, the city manager's office and the mayor's office have agreed to increase funding to nonprofit organizations in a targeted manner to deal with some of these issues on top of the programmatic pieces that we're doing. The other piece is that it was identified there was a need for school, city, and community integrated strategy. A lot of the strategies that are happening right now at the community level related to gun violence and some of what we've been witnessing has been centered around the police department. And so a part of it is moving it away from being centered in the police department and investigating crimes and solving crimes, which needs to happen, but also it needs to be the schools, the city, and some of our grantees and the community members themselves having an integrated strategy to deal with some of these issues. All things, as even I saw on the agenda, all things I know the commission is constantly working on. And lastly, I want to say that the next steps are to develop a stakeholder engagement plan to extend this engagement and to extend the communication of these convenings and these roundtables by planning and inviting other stakeholders to help plan and also, craft the agenda of what needs to be identified and what strategies we need to use. And that's where the commission comes in and others. So I think that's pretty much the update on that. So I appreciate you all for giving me the time to do that.
Thank you for coming this evening. That's a lot of that's very helpful. Jess had her hand up with a question.
I did. Thank you for that, Will. I'm really disappointed. I have to say that our chair or somebody from the commission wasn't invited and included in that conversation. It seems like a major opportunity missed because all of the things that you just talked about, we talk about every month, and we bring all of the stakeholders together. And we're also the people that when there's something going on at a particular school or in a particular community, they come to us because they know that we're the education commission and this is our job, right? Our job as a commission is to find the resources and sort of be the umbrella person or the umbrella organization that does exactly what you're talking about, right? So what you're talking about is you have, one government organization, you have the city, you have another government organization, AACPS, you have the county, but you don't have anyone who's in charge of the whole thing, right? Or who not in charge of it, but who's sort of coordinating the whole thing. And it would have been a perfect opportunity for the Education Commission to be there and to be part of it and to bring up things like, did you discuss the ongoing discussions about middle school volleyball that we've been having, trying to get, there's a parent and teachers from Annapolis and Bates who have put together a volleyball team for middle schoolers. And we have been unable to get the school system to allow the team to play in the school it's sponsored by both of the PTAs and it's free to all of the children and teachers are coaching it, but the school system wouldn't allow the practice to take place in the schools because it's a combined Bates Annapolis team, right? Those are the types of things that we have been dealing with on an individual, like Laura and I have been dealing with that particular situation throughout the last couple of months. And those are the types of things, I mean, literally everything that you talked about is something that we've all been talking about and have brought people in to discuss it. We've brought, various nonprofits in, we've done all of these things. And so it just feels like a major missed opportunity to not have the Education Commission there, since that's our job, is to be the liaison from the city to the school system, right? That's what we've all been appointed here for. That's why we all spend at least 2 hours once a month and then plenty of other hours throughout the rest of the month doing what we do. And then to not be invited like that, it just like, why are we even here? Why am I here? I could be with my kids at their scout meeting. Everybody has somewhere that they could be with their families instead of right here on this call. And I mean, it's really, I'm very, very frustrated and disappointed by it, I have to say. I'm glad the conversation took place, but it's a major missed opportunity.
Well, can you hear me, Jess? Can you hear me? So first of all, I want to acknowledge, I'm sorry that it upset you, and it's duly noted. I will say I'm not passing the buck at all, but I will say again, it was the mayor and superintendent who convened and wanted to have that meeting. It morphed into some other things, and the other thing is he had an hour window, and I don't have a crystal ball, but I will say that a part of it probably was that deeper conversation about specific, like volleyball. I know what also possibly came up in the meeting was some of the field behind Bates at Weems Wayland and some other things. And I know that level of conversation was not what was intended or was the initial thought behind having the meeting. It was more, to say that the superintendent and the mayor would, collaborate on efforts to deal with this problem. So that is not to say at all that members of the commission shouldn't have been involved in that conversation or shouldn't have been invited. But I do understand a little bit of why the invitation was probably mostly to the cabinet, that came down from Bob Mosier in the future. So having said all that, I'm trying to encourage you all to understand that was a first, somewhat symbolic meeting. But duly noted, we do need to ensure that now we have a deeper conversation and actually because the other thing is we really need to have conversations with parents. And like you said, PTA, the commission, and having conversations that are nuts and bolts, that are really talking about what's really going on and identifying some of those problem areas. So what also came out of the meeting, Jess, was that there needed to be regular check-ins. So that might be an opportunity to partner with you all as a commission and identify, when we want to have this meeting, the tone of the meeting, again, a deeper dive. And it may not be, honestly, I would imagine it probably wouldn't be all of the cabinet members that were at this meeting, like chief of staff and things like that from the school system. It may be a conversation where you get an opportunity to really unpack some of those things, such as the volleyball issue. Does that make any sense? Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that was just one example, really the whole middle school sports issue as a whole. But I understand that it's just, I understand that on the, the school, I wouldn't expect the school system to invite the education commission.
All right.
I would expect the mayor to,
I'm going
that
to
would be the mayor's job.
interject real quick. Joanna is on the line and we want to make sure that we have time for Dr. Tobin to speak. So Janet, if you could ask real quick, and then Rachel, and then we need to move this on.
Yep. Okay. Will, as the chair, I just want to, I recognize that meeting was perhaps not a place for us to voice opinions of what was going on between the school system. But according to city code, we are the official liaison for the mayor, between the mayor and the city council and AACPS. So to not even have us in the room to listen to the discussions is incredibly dismissive. And not just, you are losing out because you didn't have us in the room to listen. Okay. There would have been a number of things we could have followed up with the AACPS staff. So both of you are government organizations. We are the kind of independent watchdog as set up by the city code to analyze your actions. You are public servants. Are you doing the right thing? Are you having to do things that we don't think are as effective? We should be able to weigh in on that based on the vast amount of experience in this commission. The superintendent and his team are new. A lot of them, they're just getting started. We love to hear new ideas. We love to hear that, but they could benefit from some of the experience here on this commission.
And I'm going to cut you off. I think we've covered this. Rachel.
Can you hear me still?
You're muted, Rachel. You're muted.
Sorry, I just want to make sure I got downloaded for the record that the next steps would be. So I guess, should we await further notice about future meetings?
I'll follow up with Will and see, because I still want to get a list of invitees, a list of the schedule, if anything was recorded, if any minutes were taken, things like that.
Great.
I completely hear you. I do hear you. And again, I will pass along what your concerns is. We did have conversations about this, so know that it's not falling on deaf ears.
Yeah.
And I will say it again, this creates the opportunity to really evolve the utility of the Education Commission to the city of Annapolis. And believe me, I completely understand that it is an opportunity for us to really do some learning, as well as to connect, more succinctly with the school system. So I hear you on that, and I will elevate that.
Right.
Okay.
We want to eliminate barriers for all students to be successful. And we've heard feedback from a lot of our families of the stumbling blocks they run into in the school system. And we want every kid to feel part of it and successful and not have to turn to other alternatives. Thank you.
Well, I know we need to move on, but I will communicate with you, and then forward the things that you need to inform you about the meeting. That's for us to talk about the next meeting.
All right.
Thanks.
Bill, can I just make I know we have to run because Joanna's here, but can I just make a quick request in addition to what Rachel said about getting, what the next steps are and what the timeline is for the future things. I know Sheila has had a lot going on, and so she hasn't been able to attend the Education Commission
For a long
meetings
time.
recently. And so I think it would be helpful on the evenings, maybe all the time, or at least on the evenings when she's not able to attend, if either you or someone from the city could also attend, right? So that if you have questions or if we have, if you have updates from things, anyway, there could be more of a dialogue. I think that would be really helpful.
Mhm.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate that. Please keep us updated because it does definitely sound, as we talk about every month, there are lots of areas where we can connect. Most of which, as they said, most of what we talk about every month is exactly probably what you guys were talking about. And so that would be wonderful for future collaboration. Anybody else got any other questions? Thank you so much. We appreciate your time. And then I think we need to skip. I know we're tight on time this evening, so I want to skip and make sure we have time for Dr. Tobin. Thank you for joining us this evening. I hope you are feeling better. Oops, you're muted.
I'm getting there. Thank you. Thank you. I have to tell you, I'm here basically to take questions. I think most of what's been going on, everybody's aware of. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to be at the last two board meetings. I have been obviously attuned to what's going on. And I think, most of what's been happening, actually, we've had fairly, dare I say, uninteresting board meetings over the last couple of sessions, which is not necessarily a bad thing. And so, obviously we're past the opening of school. We're getting sort of settled, and I'm really here to hear any comments or take any questions and see what I can do to address any of those. So,
as always, we thank you for your time.
course.
Odessa, you have your hand up. You want to go first?
Yes, I would like to ask Will if he knows anything about the Maryland Blueprint. Will, can he hear me? Can you all hear me?
Yep.
You're muted, Will.
Will, you're muted.
Hear me? Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Yeah. Are you familiar with the Maryland Blueprint? Is he muted? What's going
Audio is
on?
acting up again.
It's Julian's fault.
Never mind.
Thank you.
Hi. Okay, well, Dr. Tobin, maybe you can answer. The reason why I raised that question is because the Maryland Blueprint has a lot of information in there about the African American males and how they are the students in the lowest scoring group in math and reading. They have the highest suspension and expulsion rate. And I just would like to know, what are we doing, even as a commission, to address these issues about African American males, especially at a younger age, elementary age, and since most of the killings in the communities have been young African American males?
I'll take a quick stab, and anyone else, Will or anyone else, feel free to jump in. So definitely one of the focuses of the research behind the blueprint is closing the gaps that we all know have needed to be closed for a very long time. It's actually worth noting. You may have seen today that the National Association of African American Educators, I think it is, named Dr. Bedell the Superintendent of the Year. And one of the reasons they did that was his record of making improvements for, as they, they're under their umbrella for children of African descent. And actually, our latest data that came out from last year shows improvement for those students in every single category except 8th grade science, which actually was way down across the state in every category. There are theories about what that is, not the least of which is the middle school kids home during COVID 2 years, and that science had took a particular hit on that. I'm not sure that those theories have been backed up yet by clear data. But so the good news is we're showing some progress. The bad news is that progress isn't where it needs to be yet. But those results came last year when we were understaffed and had a bunch of other issues, including, we all know, the transportation issues and a bunch of other things. Our latest data now has us under 98 vacancies for teachers, which is kind of stunning given where we were a year ago. So we're, as Dr. Bedell says, not playing 3-on-5, we're playing 5-on-5, which suggests not only with the staffing, but also now to your point, Ms. Ellis, that we have a new Chief Academic Officer who you may have seen or heard of, Dr. Marquise Duarte, who is comes with an incredible record of achievement in his own right as a principal, as an educator, is the author of a book that I just finished reading focused actually on high school setting frameworks for, improvement in high schools with a focus on literacy, which is his specialty. And so he's highly focused on exactly the issue that you're talking about, Ms. Ellis. So Dr. Bedell is focused on that issue and has now put his cabinet in place, some of the folks that Will was alluding to earlier. And actually, Dr. Duarte was at that meeting with the mayor. And this was a focus of discussion that, quite frankly, we know this, that we have lots of issues in order to address the violence, whether it's programs for students after the hours that they're in school, tutoring, all of those things. But we also need a curriculum that actually teaches children how to read. And because we know that the vast majority of students who are either wandering the halls or, in fact, end up incarcerated as adults are people who can't read. And so, there are some basics that we have to address and are being addressed now, will be this year. We've rolled out the new math curriculum this fall, Reveal Math for elementary. The new, I believe, the new reading curriculum is starting next spring, because for obvious reasons, we don't want to do it all at once, to make sure that teachers have what they need. And we've been slowly ramping up towards this for the last couple of years with training for teachers in what's known as letters and other things that are phonics based. But those are some things that, to your point, Ms. Ellis, Blueprint calls on us, requires us to do, but B, we know are the right things to do. And that Dr. Bedell is focused on and has now put the leadership in place to make sure that those changes occur throughout the system. So I don't know if that begins to address some of your question.
Well, Well, the communities now are in trauma, especially the young males. So the second day of high school, there was a fight, a big fight, and I think like 17 boys got suspended. Well, instead of sending those 17 boys home to be in more trauma, I mean, one child, that was his second day at Annapolis High School. He transferred from DeMatha in Prince George's County, and he got suspended 10 days. And these kids, so now he's afraid of riding the bus. He won't even ride the bus to school. So, I mean, there's a lot of trauma going on. So should we be dealing with these suspensions and expulsions in a different way? I mean, I know I heard Will say something about mentoring, but it just has to be a healing process that needs to be going on now. There's too much trauma. And these kids are very, very depressed and stressed out in these neighborhoods, afraid to go outside, afraid to do this. And it's not just the school's responsibility. I understand that, but Will, you working for the city of Annapolis, but when I went down there about 4 or 5 years ago and expressed the same thoughts that I'm saying, I was told it wasn't the city's responsibility by one of your councilwomen, that it was the county's responsibility. So thus, fast forward, this weekend, nobody is taking on the accountability of our children, and they aren't children. So, I mean, Dr. Tobey, can you, address the suspension and expulsions? I mean, it's been exposed to suspended from school. It has to be another process. Which one that you're dealing with?
So I can't address the specifics of why the particular school took the action it did. I know this particular set of issues has been discussed, and one of the things that's come out of it is a wish on the part of the schools to know from the community when some of these things are coming. In other words, my understanding is some of those fights had been brewing in the communities. Kids are suddenly put together at school, basically the first day of school. It exploded, and the school had no warning that people knew who came out later and said, "Oh, we knew this was going to happen." And so Dr. Bedell has made that very clear. And I think it's that discussion, Will, correct me if I'm wrong, it's part of what led to this meeting, that it was very clear that we have to have better communication between the school and the community so that we can know what's happening and we can, if possible, head some of this off, because nobody wants to see A, the fights, or B, students suspended. We know that's not going to help anyone in the long run. On the other hand, we also have an obligation to find a way to make sure that school can happen for the kids who are there and that it's a safe place for everyone. Again, I am not privy to the decisions that the particular principal or admins made, but that is generally my understanding. That being said, I think everybody understands there's got to be a better way. The question is, how are we going to do that? We have and continue to implement restorative justice programs. I will tell, which is based in the notion of healing, exactly what you're talking about, Ms. Ellis. I'll tell you that restorative justice isn't something that you can do by ticking the boxes. It is labor intensive, and it requires people who really, really, really understand the process and what is involved in doing that in a way that is meaningful and gets to exactly the healing that you are talking about. So I don't know if that completely answers your question, but that's my understanding at this point.
Well, yes, thank you.
I don't know if can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I think one of the things that came out of what you were saying, Ms. Odessa, is the accountability part. And I think, well, I appreciate you for bringing that up, because that was actually what was the tone behind the mayor and the superintendent having that meeting, is to bridge that gap, right? Because you're absolutely right. There's this bifurcation of responsibility when it comes to a lot of our feeder schools. And so it's an opportunity to really elevate that conversation and connect those dots and say, okay, like this is an Annapolis issue. It is the city, it can't be deferred anywhere else. And this is also a school system issue that we need to kind of come around and, identify some strategies. So it is about accountability. So I agree with you on that 100%.
I'd just like to add that, so the Annapolis High PTSA for the last 4 to 5 years since I was there, has been advocating for the second social worker at Annapolis High, and we have not been funded by the board. And when we had our social worker come talk to the Education Commission and explain the restorative justice process, we all understood how incredibly time consuming it is for that social worker, that one social worker at Annapolis High, plus one of the guidance counselors, who each have caseloads of like 330 students each, to do this restorative justice process. So we have not been funded for that second social worker, despite our advocacy for that. And I wish that the city would push harder on that to our Board of Education. And just, it's fairly simple. I mean, that every kid wants to feel good about themselves and wants to feel like somebody, and we're not giving them opportunities to feel like somebody. They want to find the niche that they're good at and that they're respected by their peers. And I know the Annapolis High their weight room this year. I want to know, are they allowed to have more classes, more weightlifting classes because of the expansion? Did that increase? Because that capacity was limited. That kept my kid from punching holes in the drywall. Literally. And just, what else are we doing? Are we waiving the fees for every Annapolis High student and every middle school student to attend sports events at the Annapolis High Stadium? We should be. Why are we charging our own kids to attend their school's sporting events? Like, there's so many things where we're not letting the kids build some sort of engagement. And so, they want to turn to something that makes them feel powerful. And a gun makes you feel powerful. It makes them think that somebody's going to respect them. But we're not giving them the opportunity to do the other things that are so many different barriers within the school system and within, and we're making it a pain in the butt and even get to school. You miss that bus. There's no city bus directly to Annapolis High in the pool. It's way too much of a hassle. And why not just give up? So until we start working on a lot of those systematic barriers that don't allow the kids to engage in their school and feel good about something they're doing. We do have a phenomenal music program, and hopefully in the elementary schools and middle and high, but hopefully we've got to do more things to get kids knowing that they're good at something and they feel good about themselves doing those activities. Thank you.
Yes, I think you had your hand up next.
I sort of want to piggyback, I guess, on what Janet was saying, but on the broader sense, and Will, this actually goes back to the conversation that the city and the school system had as well. There have been a number of initiatives that we as a commission have put forth. Joanna, one of the ones is the policy about, making the eligible rider circle for Annapolis Middle and for some of the elementary schools smaller, so that if you're a Title I student, you have access to a bus. Because, right, it doesn't just start when they walk into school in freshman year of high school. It's not like you have like kids who are, everything is golden in their lives, and then they show up at high school and things go sideways. It's not what happens, right? You have kids who are living difficult lives and they have to walk 1.5 miles to get to middle school. Not if they miss the bus. They have to walk 1.5 miles to middle school. They have to walk 1.5 miles there when it's lovely. They have to walk 1.5 miles there when it's raining. They have to walk 1.5 miles there when it's freezing. They have to walk 1.5 miles there when there's been a shooting in their apartment building the night before and they didn't get to sleep until 4 a.m. And then they have to get up and they have to go to school the next day. They still have to walk to school 1.5 miles. And then at the end of a very long day at school, they have to walk home 1.5 miles. That's our middle school kids. That is 10, 11, 12-year-olds, right? Little young children. And then they get to high school. And so first of all, and you know, we have all these initiatives. We're pitting kids against each other so that they won't be absent. We're creating all of these contests about absenteeism as though absenteeism is something that a sixth grader can do something about, or a 6-year-old for that matter. And most of the time it's not. If you're a 6th grader and you're 11 years old and it's even the weather this week and you have to walk 1.5 miles to school and you don't have alternative transportation, it is hard to get, or the right shoes or a raincoat. It is hard to get to school, right? So that's an initiative we've been talking about for a year. Janet brought up the bus at the school. Well, we talked to the transportation department. Janet talked to the mayor, multiple conversations about having the city put a bus at the high school. If you do not have your own transportation, you cannot participate in school sports. You cannot participate in the marching band, because you can't participate in band because one of the graded parts of band is being able to stay after school at least once a month for your practice. And if you don't have a way to get home from school other than taking an absolutely ridiculous, nobody's going to take it, hour and a half bus ride out to Best Buy and then to the mall and then back to wherever it is that you live, you're not going to do it, right? So all of these kids who may come into high school and maybe they're a fantastic football player, or maybe they could be a fantastic football player, or could be a fantastic, and then they get to school and they realize that there's no way for them to get home. If they miss school in the morning, there's no way for them to get to school. So we're creating all these incentives for people not to be absent. But if you miss your bus, there's no alternative, right? I grew up in DC. If I miss my bus, I grew up in Bethesda, but even in Bethesda, I could hop, and I went to school in DC, I could hop on a city bus and I could be at my school in DC in 30 minutes, probably sometime shorter than it took my mom to actually drive me to the school in DC. But I could do that, right? I could take public transportation. That isn't an option. There are these systemic barriers that our system, our city, our school system, the county have put up that are creating the issues. Our kids have it hard enough already. And I'm not talking just about kids who live in low-income communities. I'm talking about all of our kids. It is hard enough as it is. And some kids have burdens that are immensely harder than any of us can even possibly imagine. And then we're putting up our systems, our school system, our city are putting up barriers that make it impossible to even try to succeed. So, and it's one of those things that we bring up these ideas that have been brought to us by people within our city. The volleyball thing at Annapolis and Bates. Look, here's an opportunity to give 6th graders an opportunity to play volleyball and compete in the county for no money, for nothing, just to do it. And the amount of hoops that you had to jump through, if it wasn't someone like Emily Tomasini, who spent the last 6 years at Eastport trying to jump through 1 billion hoops to get anything done, any other parent would have just said, you know what, forget it. I thought I had a good idea, but it's not worth it. I have spent more time trying to get this good idea going than I have actually working with the kids on the good idea. And this is the thing that really, really, really needs to stop. When the community brings good ideas that don't involve billions of dollars, none of these ideas involve billions of dollars. None of these ideas involve billions of anything. The bus transportation thing, every single time the city bus transportation thing, every time we took it to the transportation department, it was like, okay, the answer is no. Let's come up with a new reason why we can say no, right? As opposed to saying, that sounds like a really good idea that will take away a number of barriers to kids possibly doing better with their lives. And let's make it work. Let's figure out how to make it work around whatever the little barriers are. That's all I have to say.
Can you hear me, Jess?
Well, well said, Jess. Well said.
Maybe it's an opportunity to create from the education committee a series of recommendations. I don't want to say policy recommendations, but maybe recommendations as to some of the things that you listed that's particularly of interest to the city, because it's the students who go to those feeder schools like Annapolis Middle and Bates and Annapolis High School, because I think it's an opportunity to maybe have it live somewhere that is constant. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, I think maybe some recommendations from the commission around like the bus part, the transportation part, and some of the other pieces. Not to have you all do extra work, but what do you all think about?
I mean, because we've
Well,
given them to
Jess,
the
let me
city,
answer.
we've met with them.
Yeah, so I've personally met with the mayor and the chief of staff and the transportation commission, or the transportation director and stuff. And things have gone nowhere from that. And I know that, Dr. Burdell came into our county surprised that we had no functional transportation, public transportation to our main high school that unifies, that all of our cluster schools go to. So that remains a big problem, but there's just so much more. It's kind of, I really think the city needs to care more about how its citizens experience student life, and the city needs to care that there aren't middle school programs, or even at the elementary school. When you look at the number of clubs run by parents and run by teachers in our wealthier elementary school communities, they have, the Stock Market Club, Destination Imagination. I worked on the robotic club at Hillsmere Elementary. There's so much more enrichment, and the South River Seahawks Robotics Club that has, low cost camps for their kids. There's so much more enrichment opportunities to do something interesting in other clusters.
We were trying to get Mesa, just to add on to that, Janet, just so you're aware, we were trying to get Mesa at Eastport, but the school system requires Mesa to have a teacher that's running the Mesa Club. It can't be a parent with like a teacher that's in the building. It has to be a teacher running it. And our teachers at Eastport are exhausted, and there's no one. I mean, and Mesa's an intensive program. So and we have parents and volunteers that'd be willing to do it, but because the school system rules say it has to be a teacher, we can't have Mesa at Eastport. And Mesa is an incredible opportunity for our STEM focused kids, like our STEAM focused kids, or just any kid, to be honest.
I mean, what I'm hearing and what continues to be the quagmire is that a lot of what you said is not within the purview of the city.
Right.
Meaning a can of worms, but in particular, like actual in-school activities, staffing, certification, who can conduct, which particular activities with children. I will say for sure that the city does not have purview.
Right.
Doesn't say, again, this is a tough thing, because I'm not saying the city does not have a hand in it and a ability for the quality of education for all young people. But I recommended providing a series of codified recommendations from the Education Commission that lays out not just one particular subject, but the portfolio of things that you all have identified as the commission and as the people who are right there dealing with those issues that can be elevated. And the only reason why I say this also is because and we all know this, like when we meet with an individual or a couple individuals who have a litany of other things that they're dealing with, it may fall through the cracks. But if you can create something that says, this is definitively this body's recommendations that we've identified as either best practices or items that will help bridge this gap. This comes from the commission. And then it can go to council persons, it can go to staff persons, various departments. That's just something that I think, would work well. And I'm willing to help, to help with that as best I can.
Right. But if we weren't, not having been part of the discussion to hear what the school system was proposing, was identifying with, we're behind the 8 ball, because we're kind of operating in a vacuum without the interaction of both your organizations. We have to be fed the information. And I tell you, when the commission has to Public Information Act request information from our school system, that's not a great, it's difficult.
Yeah,
It sounds like it's time for.
Can you let Joanna, can you let Dr. Tobin speak?
Yeah.
So I was going to say, first of all, my understanding of the meeting that was called was the fact that, frankly, for the first time in my experience, the mayor and the superintendent got together and said, we need to sit down in the same room with a lot of staff, basically. So the school system, I was there were no proposals being made. It was literally an opportunity to get in the room and share where we were, what we were seeing from each side. I think, that was the other thing I was going to say. Jolyn and Bob were having trouble getting on, but we see them now. The other thing I will say is, to Will's point, some of this falls in the purview of schools, some of it falls in the purview of the city. And that was the point of the meeting, right? How do we put those two things together? Because to your point, Janet and Jess, some of what you're talking about are the rules of the school system, which are particularly difficult in the Annapolis context because of what a lot of our Annapolis kids go through and are dealing with. It was when Dr. Bedell came and he said right out of the box, we can't do this cookie cutter, that we really had an opening to begin talking fruitfully about things like the walking radii, right? Because one of the things that's an issue for Annapolis kids with walking radii isn't just the distance, it's danger. It's the safety of walking on Forest Drive and crossing Forest Drive or wherever else the issue, or through the woods or whatever. So those are things we're working on. And that, again, to Will's point, if there is a list of concrete recommendations, many of which you and I have talked about, I can advocate for another social worker. I cannot advocate for where that social worker goes. So I think I said in the meeting last week, and I will continue to say it, and it was referred to earlier this evening. It's important that the city help us advocate for the resources we need from their perspective, because that's often what's at stake here. We're advocating with the county council, we're advocating with the county executive for funding. And we need the city to work with us on that. And there was some discussion about that at the last meeting. So I think there's a recognition that our city kids, even though they are CPS students, county students in that respect, even though technically we're a state agency, not a county agency, they're still city kids. And so how we bridge that gap and make sure that they're getting the opportunities that kids in other parts of the county are getting is what we're aiming at here. So we've already cut into Bob and Jolyn's time, I know. So
Okay. We'll just ask them to move quickly, and so we get some time for questions with them.
I just wanted to also throw over, I was disappointed, Will, to hear that the Park and Rec director was not present, because a lot of the issues that we talk about on a regular basis come through the Park and Rec department, specifically after school care, which has to be registered, is run by the city, and they have to register through the Park and Rec department. It's difficult and cumbersome for our families, and then programs get canceled because our families aren't able to get through the registration process. So we need to get Park and Rec on board as well as part of this discussion. It's a very important piece of the puzzle that is currently missing. Bob and Jolynn, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I am so sorry. We're trying to wait. I try to be respectful of your time, and we appreciate you giving us your time this evening. Thank you.
No problem. I am going to go ahead and share my screen if that's okay. Let's see. Okay. Can you, Janet, give me a thumbs up and let me know if you can see it? You good? Okay.
Yes, and Laura's running the meeting for us today.
Okay, excellent. All right, so I took a stab at providing you all with some updates, some global updates for this school year, and hope to address some of your questions that I've seen arise over the last couple weeks as well. So to get us started, as I believe everyone knows, we have 3 new school leaders in Annapolis as principals: Miss Wayland at Annapolis High School, Miss Buberg at Georgetown East, and Miss Cox at Mills Pearl Elementary School. So we're really happy to have all of them joining us in their new roles. I've broken our areas of focus up into the areas of focus for our system, which are belong, grow, and succeed. So we're going to start with the focus area of belonging. Under belonging, of course, as I know you are all aware, we are continuing to focus on attendance. Each school has a goal to increase the percentage of students who are not chronically absent. I know that sounds a little odd how it's worded. That is the way the state words it. And so we want to increase the percentage of students who are not chronically absent. A focus on providing ongoing social and emotional supports for our students. And I'll talk about that in a little greater depth in a few slides. And then, of course, our Be Present initiative to increase volunteers and adults in our schools and helping our students build trusting relationships with trusted adults, not just teachers, but other community members as well. Grow is our second area, and so we are growing as educators in Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol. SIOP is what it is commonly referred to. SIOP is a research-based program that provides us with strategies to meet the needs of our English learners in the general education classroom. How do we help our teachers help students acquire language? And so this is not every school. These are some targeted schools that are able to participate in this professional development through the use of the Concentration of Poverty, the Community School Grant Funds. We are also, as you, I believe, are aware, implementing dual language at Tyler Heights for the first time, which is very exciting. We have 2 classrooms in kindergarten and 2 classrooms in first grade, and that is a program only for students who are in that catchment area of Tyler Heights Elementary, and was an opt-in program. So that has been going just outstanding. It's going swimmingly. So I'm very excited about that as well. In the area of succeed, we are implementing our new math curriculum, our new math program, Reveal Mathematics. Right now, we are making sure that our teachers have all the tools, the skills they need to implement that program with great fidelity. That's very important. We can't determine the success of something if we don't make sure everyone is doing it. And so a change to our school calendar this year was the addition of a professional development day on November 1st, not by accident, the day after Halloween. And so our elementary teachers will be engaged in full day professional development around our new elementary mathematics program. That is not their first opportunity for professional development. It's an additional opportunity. And then we While we have always used data to inform our decisions, we have renewed energy and focus around data-driven leadership to improve results for all. We have some really amazing new data tools that our teams are being trained in. And it is a focus of all of our leaders' professional development each month when they're with me, as well as at their leveled principals meeting. So let's talk a minute about attendance. This is not a new definition. I have shared with you before that chronic absenteeism is defined as missing 10% or more of the school year for any reason, excused or unexcused absences. Just today, we had all different types of leaders from every school in Annapolis at the table together at Annapolis Middle School in the team teaching room with our Attendance Works partners. And the energy in the room is just outstanding. They are really engaged in the tough work of determining what the barriers are. And they're not singular. We can't say that the barriers are all the kids are sick or transportation or family stressors or community violence. There are a variety of barriers, those and a whole lot more. And so we have to figure out what the barriers are for each family so that we can begin the hard work, or I shouldn't say begin, continue the hard work of working to eliminate those barriers. It's a lot, but we are chipping away. We had several schools who had some gains last year, looking at our preliminary data in attendance, not the gains we would hope. We also had a lot of different illnesses and such last year. Specifically at our elementary schools, Attendance Works did some research and determined that if you can interrupt patterns of chronic absenteeism in first grade, you can change the trajectory for that child for the rest of their schooling. So if the child was chronically absent in pre-K and K, and the school can work with the family to change that pattern and get them back on track, they will then no longer be chronically absent for the rest of their schooling. So we have a really heightened focus on families whose students were previously chronically absent and are in first grade right now, have a first grader, because we want to be able to interrupt and change that trajectory. I know I'm talking fast, and I'm sure you're writing down a couple questions. Just want to make sure I am able to get through everything. So again, continued partnership with Attendance Works this year. Partnership with Rhonda Pindell Charles and City Resources. I've met with Rhonda and a few different principals that we have partnered together. She has great connections and resources throughout the city. And again, it's really to just match families with resources they need to interrupt whatever those barriers are to attendance. And then we're looking at consistency in messaging, right? We need collective ownership of our children, and that we should, if we see a child, why is he home today, right? Collective ownership and messaging around the importance of our children being in school. Laser focus on families of students who were just barely chronically absent last year. If you were absent 19 days last year, can we get that down to 17 this year? Because we know that impacts our children and the likelihood that they will be meeting other success markers, right? So not only does it impact our star rating and report cards, which is important, what's more important is that our children are in school and have the opportunity to read on grade level and to get through 9th grade with enough credits to be in 10th grade the first time and to graduate on time. And that's the why. Okay, social emotional supports for our students. So these are across levels and schools. Not every one of these is in every school, but this is a sampling and gives you a feel of some of the things we're doing to provide supports for our children. We have a really cool Peace Garden revitalization project by the Black Student Union. That's at Annapolis High School. I just learned tonight that we were able to secure $12,000 in some Title IV grant funds to work on that. And so the Black Student Union is revitalizing our Peace Garden, which is a space where children can celebrate and recognize loved ones that they have lost. Suicide prevention walks, Soul Box Project, Sound of Silence presentations at the 3 secondary schools. Some of the clubs we have are listed on the screen, and I'll let you take a look at that for a moment. Resources and service, these are some of the groups that we partner with. So we have the Pathways to Peace program at the high school. We have trauma-informed wellness groups, grief groups, Children's Guild and Thrive. I'll clarify that every school in Annapolis has either Children's Guild or Thrive as an expanded school-based mental health partnership. So they provide therapists that come in and work with students with family permission at the school during the school day. So every school in Annapolis has either Children's Guild or Thrive. They're similar services. Thrive also has an ECBI program in many of our schools. That involves a parent piece and home visits and connecting mental health resources with the family. And that's a little more expansive. That's in many of our schools. We have mental health providers that work with cognitive behavior therapy groups. We partner with Mobile Crisis, the Conflict Resolution Center, and have a host of MTSS structures and supports. That was a lot of lingo and jargon. I apologize. I'm happy to clarify as needed. And then we have our second step curriculum in place in pre-K to 8, where we are teaching our children how to get along with one another, how to engage with one another, how to respect each other, how to honor each other's voices, and teach those social emotional skills. All of our schools are also trained in restorative practices and implement community building circles and restorative circles, which is where we repair harm when done. And so that's just a brief overview of some of the social emotional supports that we have in place for our students. Want to be clear, that's not all. Those are some highlights. And then school and community relationships, be present. So really exciting. Our principals last week had an opportunity to see the dashboard that they are going to have access to in the next couple weeks, where all of the Be Present trained volunteers will be loaded. Those schools will see, let's just say Miss Norman is trained and she has her background check done, and she put down 3 schools. She wants to do Hillsmere, Annapolis Middle, and Annapolis High School. She would have checked, number 1, Hillsmere, number 2, Annapolis Middle, number 3, Annapolis High School. Well, Miss Whalen could see that she volunteered, but Annapolis High School is her 3rd choice. So they're able to see that, and they will be inviting the Be Present volunteers for a school-based onboarding session. And I would expect, if any of you are registered for Be Present, that would occur in the next couple weeks. We are continuing to look for more Be Present volunteers for Annapolis. So the website is there on the PowerPoint, and Janet and Laura will make sure you have the PowerPoint when we wrap up today. But we welcome anyone who is interested in engaging and just hanging out with our kids. Different schools will need volunteers at different times: arrival, dismissal, lunches, flex times, transitions, to build relationships and be a positive role model for our children. And so that was a lot. I'm going to take a breath and a drink, and at this time, I will turn it back to you all for any questions you might have.
Thank you so much. Will, you still have your hand up. Did you have a question for Ms. Davis? Oops.
No, I didn't. No, it was left up. I apologize.
All right, Janet.
I'll let Lily go, and then I'll go after her.
All right. Odessa?
Unmute, Odessa.
Okay. Miss Davis, good evening. Is she there? Okay, I don't see her. Yep. Annapolis to me is Annapolis is a unique town. You have the have and the have-nots. There's a lot of poverty So I'm thinking about the attendance rates. A lot of these kids may wake up in the morning and they don't have lights. I've been talking to quite a few people this week. They don't have, the electric is turned off. So how do you, I know the schools can't stop, can't be all in all, but is there some sort of services at the schools where they, where they check on the kids? I'm just trying to figure out how you can bridge that poverty that's in Annapolis in these communities. If they don't have lights, they can't come to school. They can't see, or can't do their homework. How do
So that's
we
an
take
excellent
care of this
question.
poverty?
So that is exactly what the concentration of poverty grant through Blueprint is designed to do. It is designed to interrupt generational poverty. That's what we are talking about in Annapolis. Generational poverty. And so through the community schools grant, so I use those two terms interchangeably. Community schools are funded through the concentration of poverty grant. And so our community school program managers have countless partnerships with the city, with the county, with all types of agencies. And so they're working to do things like get lights turned on for families. Is it 100% of the time? Absolutely not. We wish it could be. But they have funds available to partner with agencies to do things to help families so that kids can get to school. Often, the hardest part is getting that information about that why, right? And that comes from building those trusting relationships with families where they're at a place where they feel like they can say to the school, I got to tell you, we don't have power right now. Our lights aren't turned on. And so that's why we're not coming to school. When we know that, we can reach out to our various connections and look for opportunities to work to help our families. It's not perfect, but the community schools have provided us with that opportunity, the human resources in the school to be that bridge and that connection to help mitigate some of these circumstances.
And Jolynn,
So
I don't know if you all can hear me. Can you hear me? So, Jolynn, spot on.
yes,
For our earlier conversation, that's an example where the city is positioned and needs to be to step forward and provide assistance as well. So that's an example of that collaboration, because we do have programs in the city, whether it's rental assistance, whether it's helping with utilities that have been cut off, but also the community and city level relationship with families and students allows for there to be somewhat of a seamless connection between identifying some of those deeper issues that that the school system quite possibly cannot dig that deep and go that far down, because their responsibility is an entire portfolio of schools. So that's an example, Jess, and others that we were talking about earlier, of how the city, can more, intentionally provide that partnership and collaboration.
Mhm. I just want to ask a couple points.
So how would the parents know about? Mhm.
Their school guidance counselor can connect them with and the community resources people in there that help with rental assistance and other things.
So, Ms. Odessa, I'll also say that we are trying very hard to make personal connections with families of children who have not come to school. In most cases, if for any child that's been absent more than 1 or 2 days, there has been a personal call, whether that's from a teacher or a school counselor or the community school program manager or some adult at the school saying, hey, what's going on? We missed your child. What can we do to help?
Okay. Thank you for the
Thank
overview.
you.
I'd just like to put up a couple issues. We are such a large school system, and that's part of our downfall. That with 2,200 students at Annapolis High, I spoke with a large number that are not able to access mental health services. And they got emails directly back from their school guidance counselor saying, I'm sorry, there's a 4-month backlog to reach a mental health therapist. And that backlog has not moved since, this winter. And they're trying to get them in the spring, or they're trying to get them in the winter. That backlog has not moved. So the concept of restorative justice and mental health supports are great, but there's not enough to help our students. And so we have a ton of students that are just floundering without that. I would also say, I would like to know where the school system put the social workers that were allocated by the Board of Education, if you could follow up with us, because Annapolis High has been advocating for that second social worker to be placed in our school. So we want to know where those 3 additional positions were placed. And what we can do to get more mental health partnerships in there. Also wanted to, I know India wrote a very thorough letter regarding some of the competitions for attendance rewards and attendance competition between grades. So, if little Susie is out because she's sick, well, then her friends are supposed to egg her on to get back in class so they can win the pizza prize. And India wrote a good research-based letter regarding that. So if you have the research that you say the Attendance Works organization is promoting, please share that with us, because we never got the details of exactly what steps you were working with the grant with Attendance Work. We never got any of the specifics of what they recommend, what we know from other experience or other research that some of our specialists have looked into. So we want to help. We obviously want to help you get the kids to school, but we'd like to be that oversight to let you know if we think that's one particular choice is a good idea, or if other choices should be selected. The collective ownership of kids getting in, shouldn't include shaming and putting kids who are sick and spreading COVID. St. Anne's School, the private school, is now giving lists to their teachers of how many COVID positive tests are within their school system. And I know and the AACPS is not doing that this year, but we have to be respectful of families' decisions to try and get their kids healthy. So we'd ask for more information, and also on the attendance, on the Belong, the very first feature of yours, focusing on the kids not chronically absent, to improve not chronically absent. Well, that's an adult-based focus, as opposed to a kid-based focus for Belong would be something else. Like, hey, create great clubs at the middle school level and eliminate barriers. Hey, create something that they want to be a part of and to go to school for. That's the Belong that I envision we need to be at, not let's help the adults check their boxes to get a better school system. We all want that better school system, but how do we get the kids engaged to do that?
So I can address a couple of those points, Janet, if that's okay. So you are absolutely right. We do not have nearly enough clinicians through Children's Guild and Thrive. They are hurting for clinicians, and the need exceeds the number of therapists. So that continues to be a need, and we continue to work closely with student services to express our need, and then for them to try to work with our partners. There is a backlog for sure, and they are struggling to hire clinicians, and often our good ones get promoted, and the ones that our children love, and we're looking for new ones. So but those are not, just to clarify, that's a partnership with the Guild and Thrive, and those are not our employees. Well, I don't know where that one social worker went. I can tell you that between 2020 and 2023, we moved from 5 to 9.5 social workers in our Annapolis schools. So that's some great growth. Much of that is due to funding through concentration of poverty, the community schools funding. In regards to Ms. Oak's email, I am certainly familiar with that, her concern around that. And I do want to be clear that we're approaching attendance through three tiers, multi-tiered system of supports, and tier one is for all. So how can we promote positive, responsible attendance? Not perfect attendance, but responsible attendance. And so our kids love competitions, right? And so by no means is the expectation that anyone is shaming anyone. And we are working hard to clarify when you should send your children to school and when you should not. And so just today we talked about ensuring that we include those guidelines around when to send your child to school and when not to. The competitions aren't, you know, in Mrs. Jones' class, Janet's been absent 3 times, so we're not winning the competition. It's a whole grade level with hundreds of children, and it's to promote excitement around coming to school. You are just right in what you said about under belong. So I don't want to leave without you understanding that the goal is improved attendance. The how is through that sense of belonging.
Right. And that's what we're trying to get the details of the how.
Yes. And so
if we get the details of the how, we can help you on the belonging.
And so what's hard is there's no one cookie cutter approach, right? And so each school has to unpack their data and determine who their children are. I'll use an example. Bates is a great example. Last year, one of the things Bates did was they surveyed every student. They do a great job with ongoing student voice. And they said, do you have a trusted adult in the building? And who's that adult, right? And there were some kids that said, I don't. They then could be really intentional in saying, Janet doesn't have a trusted adult at Bates. And that's just not okay. And we're going to make sure of it. And so that worked at Bates, right? That's the structure that worked for them. At another school, they recognize that, you know, what's ironic is when we have a fun activity, booster run, or I don't know, a fun end of the year picnic, something fun, guess what? Everyone's at school, everyone. And so the kids, while often the parents do have, especially at elementary, right? It's not always the kids' issue about not coming to school. The kids also can encourage their parents, like, I got to come to school today because we're doing this. And so other schools are doing things like pop-up, fun, exciting things that you don't know when it's going to happen. Guess what, guys? Next week, I'm making this up. Mrs. Terry's going to be, you know, taped to the wall. You don't know what day it's going to happen. Yeah. So it really is unique to the school climate, the school culture, the staff, the energy they have. But that tier one is for all, promoting healthy, responsible attendance. Tier two is what we're really expanding upon. And that is, okay, we have a group of kids who have been chronically absent, not extreme, not 50 days a year, but 19 to 22. And here's the pattern of why they have been. Now we're going to put in place some responses to address that why. And then we have tier three, which are for all of the children in the family have been chronically absent for years. Going back to what Odessa was talking about with, you know, real significant barriers that we have to work with outside agencies to help eliminate. And so it's hard to say what the plan is because the plan is really nuanced and specific to the school community, the students and the families, but it is addressing all the foundation, here's some kids with some attendance concerns, and this goes beyond being sick sometimes or some, you know, we have some extenuating circumstances there. We're talking about kids who just don't come to school for just because of other things outside of illness and then the really chronic extreme cases. So I don't know if that helps. That's the approach, and it's hard to say exactly what it is. The Attendance Works website has a wealth of resources and information about their research and about what they have found. one of the consultants we're working with comes from Cleveland Public Schools, where she had extreme success, just incredible success in turning over schools with their attendance rates over time. I will let Bob, do you want to address the COVID situation?
Yeah, so let me say, Janet, on your social worker question, I've sent a text and maybe I'll get an answer in the few minutes we have left before we have to go back to this event. But if not, I will send you the answer on the social worker placements tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right, so the COVID piece, we are in regular communication with the health department. I had a conversation with them today. They are in regular communication with the state health department and taking guidance and protocols from them. They are tracking, much as most county health departments are, COVID cases, and they are more concerned about COVID outbreaks and clusters of COVID. There is no indication, to be really clear, there's no indication that they intend or anticipate any kind of closure of a school or any kind of forced masking as the levels that they're seeing now. So that's the conversation I had with them today.
We're not doing.
David, can I actually just one more question, please?
So we have about 5 more minutes before we have to get back to this event.
We're not
So I think
doing-
Jess had her hand up
Go
too.
fast. Go fast, Lily. Odessa, are you frozen? All right. Do you want to go on to Jess?
So I had 2 questions. One is,
Yes,
just-
Okay,
just,
Odessa, we're having a hard time hearing you. Your mic is not working right.
oh, I thought Jess was talking. It's just,
well, I was going to, but I didn't want to interrupt
I
if you
just-
were talking.
want to say this, are we working? What are we doing? Oh, okay. What are we doing for the suspensions and expulsions, especially in the elementary level?
Yes.
Because most suspensions and expulsions are African American males. Are we gonna work toward that problem instead of putting them out or suspending them to try to give them some sort of mentorship or something instead of putting them out on the street or or in their homes?
So I will answer this question with a first brush, but it certainly will not do it full justice, because this is a serious concern. So suspension and expulsion rate, I'll talk specifically about suspension because we do not have any expulsions, especially at the we don't have any expulsions at the elementary level. But with suspensions at the elementary school, that is an ongoing point of conversation, and that we have to be very, very cautious and careful in determining student discipline, because the purpose of student discipline is to teach. It is to teach expected behaviors. And so the very first page of our Code of Student Conduct starts with our philosophy at Anne Arundel County Public Schools. There are times where suspensions are necessary or warranted given the guidance of our Code of Conduct. My advice to principals is always to be extremely judicious and cautious in using suspensions. There are times where those suspensions occur. The law prevents us from suspending pre-K to 2 children for more than 3 consecutive days, and any suspension requires input and the determination that there is imminent threat, and that determination has to be made by a mental health professional, so a counselor, a social worker, a school psychologist. So the school principal cannot make that decision in isolation. The disproportionality of suspensions is a data point that I monitor extremely closely and that we are continuing to work through in the Annapolis cluster. The priority becomes, how do we, you hit the nail on the head when you said, how do we leverage mentors? And so the addition of Mr. Dillard, who we all know and love in his role as senior manager for mentorship, is going to be key. You know, he has Annapolis on his mind and is prioritizing, and I think there's some exciting things in the works as far as mentors for our children. In fact, he worked with us today and we have identified just over 200 children in the city, in our schools in Annapolis, who really, we believe, ages K to, well, I shouldn't say K because we didn't know them when we put the list together, but we'll add to it, 1 to 12 in our Annapolis feeder schools that could benefit from mentors. And he is aggressively seeking out mentors to work with these children, which is just going to be amazing. Okay. Jess, I know you had a couple of questions.
Yeah, just a couple of really, one thing when we keep talking about the social workers, I think it's important, you know, everybody listening when we're talking about that. I know you guys already know this, but we have 2 social workers at Annapolis Middle and 1 social worker at Bates. Is that right? So all of the kids from Annapolis Middle and Bates go to Annapolis High School and they start with 3 and they go into 1, right? So that 1 social worker now has to take on the caseload of the 3 social workers that were at the middle school. So I just think it's an important, you know, thing to keep in mind when we're talking about that. But I actually had a totally different question on something we haven't talked about. I was shown that so the farms numbers are coming up, and I know everyone's trying to get the farms things filled in. But this year, some families got a notice that they haven't received in years past that said, if you are on Medicaid, if you, if there's multiple different categories, you should not, and please do not fill out the farms category. So what I was wondering is, does that mean we've moved into a system for the school system where we are automatically identifying and we're not having to rely on just self-reporting when it comes to the farms numbers?
So that what you're referring to is direct certification. And so those categories of students automatically qualify for free and reduced meals and are considered in that farms rate, whether they fill that paperwork out or not. That is not, that's been in place for a little while now. I can't tell you the exact number of years. It's been a while though that they have direct certification. We always encourage the families though, to my knowledge, to still fill out the form. The
specifically says, please do not fill out the form at your school.
Okay. So yeah, that's something I somehow missed. But yes, direct certification has been in place for quite some time. And so without direct certification, we would probably have substantially lower numbers because we know that sometimes filling out that paperwork is a barrier. So that's a barrier that's eliminated for families that do qualify for some of those programs.
Gotcha. The people that I know have qualified for some time, but this was the first year that they were received any notification about direct qualification. So
yes, I'll check in the morning on whether that language has changed for this year. Sounds like from your experience it has, but I'll check on that.
When I attended the blueprint presentation with Dr. Pugh, she had said that was one of the identifying schools as community schools was because that was temporarily in place during COVID, but she wasn't sure if it was going to stay in place going forward. So my question is this now a permanent thing, or is this something that could be rolled back as they've rolled back some of the COVID funding and things like that?
So go ahead.
I was going to say, I believe if I recall, and I'll check my thinking here with Bob, what I believe she was referencing is the poverty rate or how we qualified children changed during COVID, right? And so you could make this much money and qualify for free and reduced meals. And that is what was driving up the farms rates as a state. Is that what your understanding is, Bob? Yeah.
But I'll check on the permanence of it for you, Laura. And as I get the answer to Jess's question, I'll put all that in the same email.
We've been so excited to have AMS receiving Title I qualification and also the community schools program. And, those programs are so amazing. We would love to see that matriculate up to the high school level as well, because students that are receiving services at the elementary school level and then the middle school level, and they get to high school and suddenly, if you've been receiving dental care or whatever through those programs, and now suddenly, oh, well, you're not at that school anymore. So to give those kids the continuation of those community wraparound services all the way through is so huge for so many of our families that anything that we can do to continue to help make sure that happens, we want to do.
I mean, as you know, right, I mean, we can certainly lobby for that, for those continued services. That decision in the end isn't ours, but you know, certainly we can, as we put forth legislative program ideas, and Dr. Tobin and the board do that, that can certainly be a part.
So just to confirm, all those direct certifications do count in the farm's numbers, even though they haven't like.
Yes.
Yes, they absolutely, they absolutely do. And so Annapolis High School is a little bit away from Title I. We do not have any Title I high schools. That magic number is 75%, I believe, free and reduced meals. And so they aren't at 60 yet. So, and that, remember, even think about that language of that grant, concentration of poverty, right? And so it is great, Laura, to your point, to have Annapolis Middle School on board with those resources. But I don't think that Annapolis High School is quite close to, is really too close to hitting that marker to become a Title I school.
And maybe this is just, I know that in some, and I don't know if this is nationwide or if it's just like a state, in some areas, they base the high school numbers because they know high schoolers are less likely to fill out the forms, or, you know, because oftentimes wherever they are, and their parents aren't as involved. In some states, they do it based on the percentages of the schools coming into the high school. So it's not necessarily like 60% filled out the forms and said, or a direct thing, but 60% did, and then another 20% should have, because when they were in middle and elementary school, they were. But does AACPS do that, or does Maryland as a state do that?
So Maryland as a state does not do that. We do have a report that we run. It's called Ever Farms. And so each school receives a list of children who were at any point in their education that we are aware of were ever free and reduced meals, so that we can target those individual families with personalized outreach to make sure that they're aware of the process, if they need support with the process. And so we do run that report for schools for that very reason, because we know as they get older, if I'm not eating the meal, or I don't like the meal anymore, and that's not the benefit. That is, so we do personally reach out and explain all of that to our families.
Thank you. All right, Janet.
I just wanted to ask if there were any things, we were not invited to be in the meeting with the mayor and Dr. Bedell and your whole staff. So we would love to know if you had any, if you had like a summary of discussions of how to interrupt the violence at the high school level. We'd really love to know your thinking points, what you want to explore, what you want to try. You know, are you going to let all students into high school sporting events to give them some engagement with their school and not charge them? What are you proposing to do, or even brainstorming to do for our Annapolis High School situation?
I would say to you that this is not. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay. So we didn't get anywhere near that in this meeting. This was a first meeting of what will be, I think we all thought it was fruitful, a series of meetings, and I'm sure we'll get to there at some point, but this really was a meeting, and Will can add to this if he wants, but this was a meeting about what do you at the schools and the school system see as issues and potential. Maybe you have a potential solution, maybe you don't. What do you at the city see? And then there were some community groups. Reverend Menendez was there. And so what do you see? So it was more of a status meeting, I would say, right? Of where everybody is. And then I think the next discussion is, where can we begin to go together? If that makes sense.
If anybody from your school system took notes from that meeting, we would love to see the notes, please.
All right, I will get you that other stuff. We've got to get back to this other event.
Thank you so much for your time.
But yeah, we appreciate it, certainly.
No, thank you both for joining us tonight, and thank you
Okay.
for all of the help that you provide ongoing and for all that you do.
you.
for students.
Thanks.
Have a good night. Thank you. All right, we are creeping up on 8 o'clock here. I think we did have a few other folks that had joined. Oh, Joanna, thank you so much, Dr. Tobin, for joining us. Really appreciate your time as well. Thank you.
Healthy wishes.
Yes, may you all stay healthy. I think we had a couple of folks that joined here. I think Julian said that there were a couple of folks that had joined. Julian, I don't know if they're still on, but if we had any other public comment, there were some folks that joined as that aren't, I think, haven't been promoted to panelists, but we have like 5 minutes left. So if anyone has I'm going to throw out again, if anyone has public comment, we could listen to that. We could hear that now.
Yeah, Laura, we lost a couple, but we do still have Ms. Sims here. Linda Sims.
Okay. Yes.
We see that.
I had not heard back from anyone, so I apologize that we didn't get to you earlier.
Linda, you still here?
Can I ask Will to put his phone number in the chat, his office number?
We don't have a chat, Odessa, but we do have his contact information. I believe he sent it to the commission, so we can send that out to you after.
Oh, okay. All right.
And Ms. Odessa, I do have yours. Do you want me to just shoot you a call, or I can put it, I can check. So I can't put it in here? Oh, that's right. We don't have chat.
Chat.
Yeah, I was trying to find the chat.
We'll make it work.
Yeah. Can you call me or whatever?
Yes,
Text
I will.
me.
Actually, well, that brings up something, not the chat, but while we're waiting for the public comment to come on, I would love to see if the city can help us make these meetings bilingual. We're using Zoom. I'm assuming it's a paid Zoom account. Using the interpretation feature on Zoom is really easy and fantastic, and it would be great given the large number of Spanish-speaking parents and students in our school system if we could have a bilingual meeting.
Okay. Thank you. I will definitely take note of that. So do you mean, just so that I'm clear, translation, or do you want to utilize like something that translates on the screen?
I mean, whatever, the translation feature is pretty great. If you have an interpreter who's translating and then somebody can dial into the Spanish translation of it, or, somehow other access it. But at the very least, I think having it be able to be captioned, the automatic captions, and have them be in Spanish would at least be something. But I think that literacy level wise, I think that a translation would be better than captioning.
Yeah, and the nice thing with it being streamed on YouTube, Jess, at least we have that going. We have that option on the YouTube that they can put the Spanish translation up. Right. I'll look into the other part though for you too. I hadn't really mess with that at all on these. I'm not seeing Miss Sims come forward at all. So maybe she's just listening.
All right. All right, well then I guess really quickly, I'm gonna run through, do we have any unfinished business that anyone wanted to bring up today? I know we're getting up on 8 o'clock, and I want to be respectful of people's time.
Just the unfinished business of the transportation policy. We have been in contact with the Board of Education's policy committee, wanting to see when that eligible ridership distance to access a bus is coming up for review. And so the chair, Ms. Ellis, Melissa Ellis of the board, told us that is supposed to be reviewed this fall. So we will keep an eye on all the policy review and let you know, but please start rallying the troops to speak up for that issue and the specifics of why that is an important issue to change.
Especially in light of the discussions that we've had on attendance, and not having transportation certainly affects attendance.
Just to be clear, the request that we made was that Title I schools, no one should have to walk more than half a mile, regardless of the age level, the grade level of the student.
Title I schools.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
It's unfinished. Thank you.
All right. Does anyone have any new business that they'd like to bring? No? All right. One last shot on any public testimony?
No.
Nope. All right.
Do we have a date for the next meeting?
Do you, Janet? That would,
It's normally the fourth Wednesday of the month. However, we try to check the Board of Education calendar, which kind of moves around.
yeah, the
Some-
25th would be the 4th, which would be good because the Board of Ed meets on at 6:30 on the 18th. So the 25th would be a good day, provided we can get support that works for the city.
Okay, so that would be October 25th, 6 to 8 p.m.
Yeah.
For our next proposed meeting.
Mhm.
Thank you all for your participation. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you. I hope you're enjoying your vacation.
Make
All
a
right,
motion to
as
adjourn.
always, thank you to everyone for everything that you do. We know that although we only show up on screen for 2 hours during the month, all of you are busy all the time doing things in your communities and in your schools, and we appreciate that very much. Wait,
Enid has a
Enid?
motion.
Yes, I just wanted to remind everybody that the Kunta Kinte, I was waiting for you to say announcements. That's why I was waiting.
Sorry.
Yeah, that the Kunta Kinte Heritage Festival was postponed. The new date is October 28th. So please put that on your calendar and spread it. We need anybody who needs credits for school service hours, they can get those service hours then. And then I just wanted to make a motion, if there are no other announcements, that we adjourn the meeting.
I second the motion.
I just have one, I forgot him also, that this weekend is the 25th anniversary celebration of the Maritime Republic of Eastport. For 25 years, the Maritime Republic of Eastport has been causing good trouble and supporting the schools in Eastport and Annapolis Middle and Annapolis Elementary. So as long as they've been around, schools and particularly reading in the schools has been one of their primary things. So please come out and celebrate the 25th anniversary of the MRE this weekend.
Yes, and last announcement, the KB True Value and its partner businesses, Bay Ridge Wine and Spirits, Lido Pizza, there's maybe several others this year, are participating in the Cash for Schools program. So you can stop in KB True Value on the corner of Bay Ridge and Forest and donate to your favorite school, and they will match it. And these are important funds that go to our principals for a lot of things that are not covered.
You can also donate online through the KB True Value website, and they are, I believe, triple matching. All of the donors together will be triple matching every donation that you make. So if you make a $10 donation to a particular school, that school's going to get $30. And that stuff adds up really quickly. I think last year they gave out, I believe it was over $30,000 to our local schools. So this is a fabulous, fabulous thing that they do, support our local businesses because they're great, and also support our local schools.
Now through October 31st. Yes.
I second Enid's motion.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Sorry, just a couple minutes later tonight, but appreciate you all sticking along and hanging in there or something like that.
Great meeting.